Nintendo has a bad habit. They continue to make incredible games time and time again, but for some reason it's always Mario, Zelda, or Kirby getting the limelight when there are so many series just collecting dust. So today we're talking about the series Nintendo has forgotten and why they need to come back. It's crazy to me that so many people know who Captain Falcon is, but the only games they have ever seen him in are Smash games.
Falcon! Oh my god, he doesn't actually do that.
Oh, my bad.
Falcon!
Before that little-known series Mario Kart released for the Super Nintendo, we had F-Zero, a high-speed, futuristic racing series that showed off what was possible on the Super Nintendo. Prior to F-Zero, racing games didn't look all that great, but for the first time using Mode 7 graphics, Nintendo was able to replicate a 3D environment on their home console. And better yet, this was a launch title. Having a high-speed racing game as a launch title for the console was a great idea, but it did have some issues, mainly the fact that there was no multiplayer option for this game.
Well, I guess I'll just take my money elsewhere.
You don't have any.
Why would you say that?
Luckily, this got fixed with F-Zero X on the N64, which even though it wasn't as impactful as the original, was a overall upgrade in every possible way. To nobody's surprise, the N64 is a far stronger console compared to the Super Nintendo, so the new F-Zero game looked and felt so much better. The native 3D allowed the world to pop so much more than it did on the Super Nintendo, and having a world that looked so much better really enhanced the feeling of speed this game offered. But just like F-Zero on the Super Nintendo, this was quickly overshadowed by Mario Kart, and though I don't find it fair to compare these two games because they serve such wildly different audiences, where Mario Kart is the second best-selling game on the console, F-Zero is the 44th. Luckily, Nintendo didn't completely write off the series from here, because we were given a few more games on the GameCube and the Game Boy Advance, my personal favorite being F-Zero GX.
Nintendo has been in a really giving mood recently, giving us Thousand Year Door and Prime 1, but who do I need to talk to get F-Zero?
F-Zero GX was the peak of the franchise, highlighting all of the best parts of F-Zero in one perfect package. Everything about the game, whether it's the speed, the tracks, the soundtrack, or even just the story itself, is incredible. It offers a level of speed and challenge that we never really get in racing games, especially from Nintendo. I don't play a ton of racing games, so I'm nowhere near an expert, but this is one of, if not the most challenging racing games I have ever played. But it's not in a way that's punishingly difficult for no reason. And even after decades, whenever I revisit this game, I still have just as good of a time as I did when I was a kid. But since 2004, we have had nothing.
Well, we got F-Zero 90.
No!
It doesn't count, it's not the same.
In 2023, we got F-Zero 99, and yes, this is technically an F-Zero game, but I don't hear anybody counting Mario 35 when they're talking about 2D Mario games. And though it is fun and I have had a great time playing it, it's more so a novelty than anything else. And even though it's nice, it's not what we want. I want something in the same vein as F-Zero GX. A true modern F-Zero game would be incredible. The high-speed action that F-Zero offers can't be replicated in something like Mario Kart. So if we were to get a new F-Zero game, I would love it to have the style of F-Zero GX with the feelings of a modern racing game. We will probably never get this, but I am willing to hold out hope until the day I draw my last breath.
It's a shame because at this point, Captain Falcon is only really known for his punch, and he's not even a boxer. Why are you so short?
Punch-Out as a series is not the most complicated thing on the market, and is a relatively simple game, even if it can be incredibly challenging. But the last entry we got for Punch-Out came out on the Wii, and when it released, I was expecting a huge amount of hype to be drawn to the series. But the audience reaction was more or less a collective,
I'm not playing that.
I am a big fan of the older Punch-Out games, and even the one that released for the Wii, and you would assume that the Wii was the perfect console to release a new Punch-Out for, with the incredible success of Wii Sports and Wii Fit both bringing exergaming into the limelight. But the same games that served as a great way to show off how good this series could be ultimately led to it not performing well. Wii Sports came with every single console, and in that game there was a boxing game mode, and it worked really well. So when they went to revive Punch-Out, they had to compete with a game that everybody already owned if they owned the console. And even though Punch-Out was a much tighter game, people already had that experience experience for free. But this is the perfect time for Punch-Out to make a comeback. Nintendo is still funding boxing games.
I'm not playing that either.
This may be a controversial opinion, but nobody is buying these fitness boxing games. So if Nintendo wanted to make money, they would invest whatever money they're putting into these games and just have this type of game mode be available in a new Punch-Out. It would be the perfect way to combine exergaming with a beloved Nintendo IP that already exists, and it would give Punch-Out fans something. I know exergaming is nowhere near as popular as it used to be, but combining a beloved Nintendo IP with this kind of game would serve two purposes, and I think it would do decently well. There are so many great ways they could use to make a new Punch-Out, but as long as I can still throw hands with Donkey Kong, I'll be happy.
I feel like boxing a gorilla is a bold move. I wouldn't do it personally, but at least he's wearing gloves.
If only there was another game series where we could have Donkey Kong wearing boxing gloves. I am well aware of the rocky history of Mario sports games, but one series has never had a bad entry, and that's Mario Baseball.
Alright, there's only 2 games. It's not that impressive. I will strike you.
I am a massive fan of Mario sports games. It doesn't matter if it's golf or tennis, I'm going to have a great time. But there's no hiding that for a while, Mario sports games were in a weird position. Whether it was a complete lack of content, or the painfully slow drip feed of content post-launch, whenever they announce a new Mario Sport title, people are skeptical, and deservingly so. But I truly believe that Mario Baseball could be the series to set Mario Sports back on the right track. Even to today's standards, Mario Superstar Baseball is an incredible game. There is so much fun to be had whether you're a veteran player or someone checking out the game for the first time. It offers a wealth of content with a ton of Mario characters that you can choose from, a bunch of great mini games and stadiums, and a impressively high skill ceiling where people are still playing this competitively to this day. And Mario Super Sluggers for the Wii was just as good. This fell into the same problem that Punch-Out did, where a lot of people didn't see a need to buy a baseball game if they could just play Wii Sports. But this had what Punch-Out didn't, and that was Mario's face on the cover.
Wow, that gives me a great idea. How about nope, here you go. How did I already get sued?
Though it wasn't as competitive as its predecessor, it still did a great job of being a fun baseball game with a ton of Mario characters. The motion controls worked incredibly well, and it felt like a natural progression for the series. But even though every other major Mario sport has gotten a game since, there hasn't been a new Mario baseball game since 2008.
2008, what a great year where absolutely nothing bad happened.
There have been so many great Mario games that have come out since this released that I know they would have no problem building the best roster in Mario history. And since it seems that Nintendo isn't going to get rid of motion controls anytime soon, it is the perfect opportunity to bring Mario Sports back into the limelight with a brand new Mario Baseball.
Luckily, baseball isn't made by Camelot, because they should be hard at work making a new.
You would think I would have learned my lesson by now, but every time there's a new Nintendo Direct, I get a glimmer of hope that there will be a new Golden Sun game.
And all I ended up getting is depression. It hasn't gone away.
Golden Sun is a fan favorite RPG series for a weird reason. The first Golden Sun came out shortly after the release of the Game Boy Advance, and it did an incredible job replicating the look and feel of a Super Nintendo JRPG on a handheld console. Up until this point, we were used to games like Pokémon Crystal being the peak of handheld gaming. And while Crystal is one of my favorite games of all time, you can't tell me it looks anywhere near as good as Golden Sun. So getting a game that looked this good on a mobile console was insane. And it's not just the looks, the gameplay itself is still incredible. In my opinion, this is the best gateway to JRPGs of all time. I know a lot of people have a hard time getting into these kind of games because they're very dialogue heavy and can be very slow. But Golden Sun does an incredible job thrusting you into this brand new world, giving you enough guidance to not get confused about what you're doing, but not holding your hand through the entire experience. The first game in the series is Golden Sun.
Wow, who would have guessed?
Unlike some RPGs, it doesn't hold your hand and explain the world, it quickly throws you directly into the action, and doing so gives you the ability to quickly start exploring the incredible world of Wayard. I can't say there is a single part of Golden Sun that is a perfect 10 out of 10, but there's also no part of the game that I can say is bad. Wayard is full of diverse cultures and interesting characters to meet along your journey. The puzzles in dungeons are some of the best on the Game Boy Advance, even giving games like Minish Cap a run for their money. And watching Isaac and his friends grow to become more confident in their abilities is a great time. And this is even true for the sequel, Golden Sun: The Lost Age, which is a direct sequel to the first game and does an incredible job continuing on the story. I would go as far as to say that these Golden Sun games do a perfect job of connecting one game to another. That could be because this was originally planned to be one large N64 game, but regardless, they come together to be one of the best JRPG experiences you can have on a Nintendo console.
What about Dark Dawn on the DS? Get out.
7 years after we got Golden Sun: The Lost Age, we ended up getting a brand new game, Golden Sun: Dark Dawn, and it was just okay. A lot of things that people loved about the original Golden Sun games were stripped away or outright removed, like some of the most important characters from the original 2 Golden Sun games not being included in this title, which I could forgive to a point if the story made sense, but for some reason about 10 hours into the game, they just entirely switch what the game is about. The story itself isn't bad, it's just not what the game was setting up at all. But then they proceeded to end the game on a massive cliffhanger and not make a game for 15 years.
Hello, I would like to buy all of your pitchforks and torches.
I honestly don't care how they do it, I just need something in the Golden Sun universe to release so I don't lose my mind. But if you haven't checked out this series yet, I highly recommend it because it's an incredible time. It may not be the best JRPG you'll ever play, but it is definitely one that is worth checking out.
Golden Sun did a great job telling an emotional story, but the next game gave me actual emotional damage.
I was a little late to the party for EarthBound, but I will say, I get it. In the past, I had tried to get into the EarthBound and Mother games, but I just couldn't do it. I had heard what everyone had been saying about them being genre-defying and cult classics, but it just didn't seem like it was for me. That was until I played it.
How do I spell repent?
To start off, I played through EarthBound because I didn't really want to play through EarthBound Beginnings. I've only heard one person talk about it ever, so I figured why not start directly in the middle. And as soon as I turned the game on, I knew I was going to have a hard time putting it down. It is a perfect blend between being a humorous, fun adventure and being one of the most unsettling games I have ever played. Just like in a lot of other RPGs, a lot of the time you spend playing the game is spent talking to people. And being such a dialogue-heavy, story-driven game, I assumed there was going to be at least some moments where I wanted to skip through conversations to get back to the game, but that wasn't the case at all. Even though it is over 30 years old, the humor and dialogue are timeless. And it doesn't matter if it's an important character to the story or just some random guy in a house, they will either say something funny or helpful every single time. And the humor is not just in the dialogue, it's also in every single battle. A lot of the enemy names are stupid and funny in a great way, and the battles themselves are fun to go through. Granted, a lot of the time I would just throw on auto battle and let it ride, which is one of my favorite features in an RPG, but for the battles that I had to pay more attention to, the odometer system and the battles themselves were a great time. I'm surprised it took me this long to get into EarthBound considering I've been using NES and Smash Bros since Smash 64. So of course, as soon as I finished the game, I wanted more, so I looked to play Mother 3.
Hey dude, do you happen to have Mother 3? Yeah, I got you. That's gonna be $40. Thanks, I just really needed a fix.
Now, I'm not trying to sound like everybody who has ever complained about Nintendo ever, but it's crazy that we have never gotten an official release of Mother 3 outside of Japan. Luckily, some die-hard fans localized the game, making it so anybody can pick up and play it easily, because this is one of Nintendo's best games ever. At this point, I've kind of lost hope that Mother 3 will ever be localized outside of Japan, and there are a bunch of reasons why, whether it's Lucas indulging in Mario's favorite pastime of eating mushrooms, or certain characters that pop up throughout the story that wouldn't really mesh with today's current climate, and considering there's already a great way to play it, Nintendo doesn't need to release it. But Mother 3 does an incredible job of improving everything from the original EarthBound games while adding one of the best stories in video game history. You play as a bunch of different characters throughout the story, but the main character is Lucas, and you get to see him go through a journey of loss and grief, and it was one of the most captivated I have ever been with a narrative while playing a game. If you have yet to play EarthBound or Mother 3 and you're a fan of RPGs to any capacity, I think this is a must-play for everyone. And even though by this point a lot of people are convinced we are never going to get a new piece of Mother content, I am holding out hope that we will get something, whether it's a sequel game or an animated series or manga. Whatever it is, I will buy it.
It's crazy to me that people only know Ness and Lucas from Smash Bros. They have to be Nintendo's most obscure character on the Smash roster.
Ice Climber!
Oh yeah, I forgot about them.
Now I know Ice Climber is not one of the most important games ever made, and as far as Nintendo fans go, I'm sure there are a ton of other games that deserve a new title more than this.
But I still want it.
Ice Climber released in 1985, and we have got nothing since, but I think this is the perfect opportunity for Nintendo to make a competitive Ice Climber game. They can call it Ice Climber 99 or whatever they want, but just for a moment, imagine a game where you and 98 other people are competing to be the last one still climbing. It would be a great way for Nintendo to recognize that Ice Climbers exist still, and to just make a game that is infinitely fun. Whether they want to go the route of making this a 99 style battle royale, or an infinitely replayable eShop game or app, it would be an easy way for Nintendo to dip their toe back into the world of Ice Climbers for the first time in 40 years.
Just because we haven't gotten a new Ice Climbers game in a very long time doesn't mean it's gone forever, right?
I never learned how to read!
Get out of here!
From 1991 until 2008, if you had asked someone who this was, they would probably tell you they had no idea. But when Super Smash Bros. Brawl released, we got a look at Pit from Kid Icarus for the first time in a long time. And I was convinced this was going to be another Ice Climber situation where they give us this character and then never touch them again.
Well, now I owe you $20.
Kid Icarus and Kid Icarus of Myths and Monsters are fine. They're good games and I do recommend checking them out, but that's not what we're here to talk about. Kid Icarus Uprising is one of the best Nintendo games ever released. I didn't play this as soon as it released, but as soon as I picked it up for the first time, I knew that I was going to be cripplingly addicted. This is nothing like the original Kid Icarus games, and that's fine. There are two primary ways to play the game, the first being a Star Fox style on-rail shooter where you're shooting enemies using the touchscreen, and the second being an on-foot third-person action game that works incredibly well. The only issue is that being on the 3DS, the controls are a little weird. Pit's movements are controlled using the circle pad while you aim using the stylus on the bottom screen.
So this is a great time to learn not to be left-handed.
Even though the control scheme is a little weird, the game itself is a masterpiece. The gameplay is fast-paced whether you're on rails or on foot. There are so many different weapon types to try out, encouraging you to play through the game multiple times. The soundtrack and voice acting are some of the best that Nintendo has ever produced, and I am still shocked that we have not gotten a new Kid Icarus in over a decade. I could think of so many ways that Nintendo could make a brand new Kid Icarus game that doesn't control like I'm trying to emergency land a plane on a body of water, but even if it controls exactly like it does now, I would still buy this game, no questions asked. If you have yet to play Kid Icarus, all of the games are worth checking out, but Kid Icarus Uprising is absolutely the best. All the way back in 1992, with Super Mario Land 2, we saw the birth of Wario. And from that moment on, he was an instant hit, who went on to get multiple of his own series like Wario Land and WarioWare. I love the Wario Land games because they are so unique. When you hop into a standard Mario game, you get more or less a similar experience every single time. So when I got into Wario Land, I went in with the Mario expectation, but I was completely wrong. Nintendo wasn't afraid to get really weird with some of these games. And the game I think they did Wario Land best in was Wario Land 4. Though Wario started off as the anti-Mario, doing things like hypnosis to try and get his way, Wario finds his true passion in the Wario Land games, hunting for treasure. This is a major focal point of all of the Wario Land games, especially Wario Land 4. This and the other Wario Land games have Wario hunting for any treasure he can get his hands on. And Nintendo could have easily just made this a Mario clone where you have a focus on picking up a bunch of coins, but they went an entirely different route, making a game series that feels unique. When Mario gets hit, he shrinks, which is a typical thing seen throughout most Mario adventures. But in Wario Land, when you get hit, you get a new power based on what hit you. And I think this is a genius way to differentiate a Wario Land game from a typical Mario game. Whether it's the original Wario Land games all the way up through Wario Land Shake It, this is a great system that works incredibly well. And even though Nintendo has a ton of different 2D platformers that they can work on at any given time, I can't be the only one who's been waiting anxiously for a new Wario Land for over a decade. And as much as I love WarioWare, it's just not the same. I think it's about time that we get a new Wario Land game in some capacity. Whether they completely remake the original 3 Wario Land games to feel more modern, or they go an entirely different route, making something more similar to Wario World, as long as we get a new Wario platformer in some capacity, I will be happy.
Wario deserves to be in the rotation for the 2D platformers that Nintendo makes. They were just giving them to anyone for a while.
I understand what they were going for with Chibi-Robo Ziplash, but they had such a good formula with the original games. In particular, the one on the GameCube. Chibi-Robo's goal is to keep the house clean by any means necessary. You're given to a child who thinks she's a frog as a gift.
So we're just letting this kid be a frog? Alright, not my kid.
Your goal is to keep the house clean, using anything that is not nailed down to help you achieve that goal. Whether it's picking up trash or cleaning up footprints on the floor, you are cleaning everything in sight. And though it may seem simple, it is so much fun. The more you clean, the more happy points you get. The whole game takes place in the family's home, but considering you're at such a small scale, it feels like an ever-expanding world. As you get more tools to explore and clean, the world feels like it opens up as you uncover new ways to navigate it. And even though the gameplay itself is relatively simple, they had a great premise here. But even though the game was a load of fun, it came out right towards the end of the GameCube's life, so a lot of people never got the opportunity to play the game. But surprisingly, they ended up making a sequel game, Chibi-Robo Park Patrol. Another Chibi-Robo game that not a lot of people played.
Oh, probably because it was only available at Walmart.
I understand the idea of store exclusives, don't get me wrong, but I don't think this was a great game for it. Chibi-Robo was already such a small series with not that many fans, so limiting it to just Walmart doesn't make sense. But the gameplay itself is still pretty good. Instead of cleaning a house, this time you're improving a park. You do this mainly by planting flowers and dancing with them. I guess that helps them grow at least a little bit. But regardless, it doesn't matter if I'm cleaning a house or building a prettier park, Chibi-Robo deserves a chance to shine. Turning Chibi-Robo into a 2D platformer just didn't make sense. There are plenty of other 2D platformers that do a better job, and they have a great system with the original game. I would love a new Chibi-Robo in the style of the original, whether I'm cleaning a house or an apartment building. It's a great opportunity for Nintendo to make something that feels new.
They have Chibi-Robo cleaning spaceships now. So at this point, he feels right at home working for...
I, like a lot of people, love Star Fox, but the last couple Star Fox games haven't been that great. To a lot of people, Star Fox 64 is the peak of the series. The ability to replay the game multiple times to explore different areas is just fun. And though it's not the most complicated or over-the-top game in the series, it did a great job being exactly what it needed to be for the time. A fun, on-the-rail shooter where you fly a spaceship. But after Star Fox 64, they entirely lost sight of where the series should have went. After Star Fox 64, they made Assault, which is a good time. It took some creative liberty about what Star Fox could be, but it did so in a way that felt like a natural progression of the series. And yes, Star Fox Adventures did exist, and there are a lot of reasons why that game in particular is a little strange, mainly because all of the dinosaurs.
Is this The Land Before Time or Star Fox? I am so confused.
But Assault was a good game, something I go back to time and time again and have a good time. And then they completely forgot it existed. Star Fox Command released for the DS in 2006, and it was a very strange title. It felt like a major step back for the series. Though the DS wasn't strong enough to run something like Assault, it still could have been something so much more than what we got. And then the series went quiet for 10 years, and when they finally released a new game, we got Star Fox Zero.
Oh, I am totally fine waiting, actually.
Zero is an okay game. It does a lot of things decently well, and it does a lot of things completely wrong. Star Fox is capable of so much more. And I'm still unsure if it's that Nintendo has lost faith that the series can sell well, or that they just have no idea what people want from the series. But either way, there are plenty of opportunities for Nintendo to make something special with Star Fox.
At this point, I would take a brand new Star Fox adventure. Okay, never mind.